Cuban Link once called Fat Joe fruity, but nobody took it seriously. Now Remy Ma just backed him up, and that's why Joe's out here panicking. Now the old beef between Joe, Remy, and Cuban is back in the spotlight because Joe's name just got dragged into a new lawsuit involving underage girls. This might just be what Cuban and Remy were warning us about. The conversation blew up again after a bombshell lawsuit dropped, filed by Joe's former hype man, Terrence Dixon, aka TA. The news of Joe getting sued hit the New York media outlets fast, and before you know it, everyone was talking about it. Here's what the report actually said. This aired at noon just the other day.
New at noon, rapper Fat Joe is being accused of sex acts with minors in a $20 million lawsuit. The rapper's real name is Joseph Cartagena. The man described as his hype man, Terrence T.A. Dixon, claims Cartagena, quote, had coercive labor exploitation, financial fraud, sex manipulation, violent intimidation, and psychological coercion, end quote.
And if you think fruity was just a diss, wait till you hear what TA said Joe was doing behind the scenes. Now, let's talk about the guy who started this whole thing. So the guy suing him, TA, is actually his former hype man, and he's telling us that he went through years of being used, abused, and in the end, erased. TA wasn't just some background hype man. He was with Joe for 16 years, and now he's saying those years were filled with abuse, secrets, and straight-up crimes. But this ain't about bad contracts or royalties. This lawsuit goes way past music and into dangerous territory. TA's accusing Joe of sexual manipulation, violent threats, and forcing him into humiliating acts, some that were even caught on camera. He says he saw Joe do it with at least 2 underage girls who were 15 and 16 years old, and then there was a third chick that Joe fell in love with and was also way younger than him. So were these just flings, or are we talking about a full-on group situation? First, TA said that one 16-year-old Dominican girl would go downtown on Joe and do some other stuff with him too, in exchange for money, clothes, and even phone bills. Then, Joe started a relationship with a 15-year-old white girl after meeting at an overseas concert. He flew her to New York and Miami multiple times, and even paid for her to get a BBL. And lastly, Fat Joe was in love with a third chick who was a Latina, and he met her when she was 15 years old. Just like before, Joe paid for all of her bills. He took her overseas for tours, and he put her up in a condo near where he lived with his wife in Florida. He even thought about leaving his wife for her. But don't take TA's word for it. Fat Joe snitched on himself in his songs. On She's My Mama, Joe raps about a 16-year-old girl with whom he had a fling and would go down on him, just like the lawsuit says too. It's no wonder the comment section of this song is flooded these days. But this lawsuit wasn't just about exposing Joe and his fruity side. It was about the stuff TA went through because of him too. Apart from the fact that Joe underpaid him, denied him songwriting credits, and concealed royalties and back-end payments, Joe also coerced TA into doing it with women after concerts, sometimes while other people were around. And it gets even darker. TA says he was coerced into over 4,000 sex acts to keep his position in Joe's inner circle, something he now calls the Enterprise. To make it worse, Joe would threaten to leave him stranded overseas if he ever pushed back. The case is so disturbing, the court filing starts with a trigger warning. Now that we're on the legal side of things, it's funny how the lawyers who rep both Fat Joe and TA have beef of their own. If the name Tyrone Blackburn sounds familiar, that's because he's the same lawyer behind those bombshell Diddy lawsuits that led to DHS raids in both LA and Miami. See, Tyrone called out Joe's lawyer, Joe Tacopina, on IG, and for all we can say right now, this is turning out to be quite the show. With Tyrone now backing TA, it's clear this isn't some random money grab. It's more of a coordinated legal assault tied to some of hip-hop's most protected circles. On the other hand, Joe's lawyer says the allegations are nothing but lies. Joe Tacopina thinks this lawsuit from TA and his legal team is a blatant act of retaliation for a civil suit that Joe filed against Dixon. And that brings us to our next point. Joe actually sued TA first, and it was back in April. See, before these two took the legal route, TA made some wild allegations against Joe online, and Joe clapped back. Fat Joe his TA with a fat lawsuit first because TA was out here throwing dirt on his name all over socials, and it's for the same reasons he sued him for later. He cheated him out of his bag and put him in all kinds of nasty scenarios, like this one time that Joe basically gave this one girl hell, and TA was forced to join him. TA talked about it during one of the shows he hopped on last year, and this is what he said.
He's standing in the lobby, shorty got a short skirt on. Your man Joe takes his whole hand, his whole arm, and throws it up her skirt.
But that was just the beginning. TA took it way further than that. TA made a whole IG page where he would make fun of Fat Joe in all kinds of ways. For example, he posted a photo of Diddy, Fat Joe, and Khaled, and he added a caption which wrote, "Fat Joe and DJ Khaled, what happened now? Y'all going to act like y'all don't know Diddy sucker-ish? Y'all don't want to be a part of that baby oil, I see. But don't act like y'all wasn't with him." Then, he posted a photo of him, Joe, and the rest of their crew when they were kidnapped in Angola. But it wasn't just about the past. When Joe and Remy released Out of Control a few months back, TA made fun of Joe's looks with uploading a screenshot from the music video of Joe and saying, "Ladies imaging waking up next to this sag bag every morning. Lil Joey, you are just terrible." And the list goes on and on. TA kept this going for months before Joe finally filed a lawsuit against him. Joe told media outlets that these claims of him owing TA money are completely false, and his lawyer basically said that it's just a full-blown extortion scheme by a bitter ex-team member. So who is right and who isn't? To find some answers and to see if TA was right or if he was capping, we gotta look into Joey's past, and what better place to start than his beef with Remy Ma and Cuban Link, who also came at him, just like TA. First, let's see what Remy had to say. Joe and Remy go way back, and they used to be locked in like family during the times of Terror Squad. But there was also a fallout between them, and it was personal, public, and painful. Right after Big Pun passed, Joe didn't waste time. He brought Remy into Terror Squad, had her front and center on Lean Back, and really positioned her to win. But when it came time for her to drop her debut album, everything went left. Remy felt like the Terror Squad did her dirty. She said the rollout was weak, the album didn't get pushed, and behind the scenes, she pinned that blame straight on Joe. That's when she started airing him out in public. Shots fired, no filter. Now here's where it gets real. Joe wasn't just mad, he was hurt. In an interview, he said flat out, "I could never forgive Remy Martin. She really hurt my feelings." And this wasn't just industry static. Remy was disrespecting his whole family, and that crossed a line for him. After that, Joe said in an old Smack TV interview how it was good that Remy decided to leave. Ever since she was gone, it was nothing but success for them.
I feel sad for her. God bless Remy Ma. I feel sad for her because she, we really loved her. She left the Terror Squad, and my God, have we been on fire ever since.
Little after that, Remy was behind bars, and during that time, Joe and her didn't speak at all, and the tension sat heavy for years. But once she got out, it's like everything shifted. They finally had that face-to-face, talked it all the way out, and not long after they dropped All the Way Up, they're back like nothing happened. A few months before Remy got out, she called Joe on the phone and told him about patching things up. Vlad TV did an interview with both Remy and Joe, and this is what she told him.
It was like straight like, listen, this can't go on. It was about a year or so and some change before I came home. And we talked for about a couple of hours.
So what changed? Remy admitted she was reckless back then, young, frustrated, and didn't know how to move in the game. Joe said they both grew up and chose to let the grudge go. But as far as Fat Joe and Cuban Link, it ain't all love as it is with Remy. Cuban and Joe's beef is alive and well. Now, let's clear something up real quick. Cuban Link has been calling out Fat Joe for years. Back in 2021, Cuban pulled up on the internet with some paperwork, and he was claiming Fat Joe had been out here snitching, giving up info to the cops about crimes in the Bronx, including making people go away for good. He even shared screenshots and docs, trying to blow the lid off. But here's the thing, nothing ever got confirmed. No one could prove the paperwork was real, and Fat Joe came right back, brushing it off. Then fast forward to late 2024, Cuban switched gears. This time, he accused Joe of having a racist past. He said some folks in the industry had stories, and Cuban even shared a few of his own, saying Joe had made questionable comments and shown some real suspect behavior. Again, no criminal stuff, just more personal drama with deep tension. And of course, Cuban's biggest beef has always been about how Joe did him dirty in the game. He said time and time again that Joe blocked his shine, messed with his bag, and never kept it 100. That's exactly the reason why just 3 days ago, Cuban Link hopped online after seeing the Fat Joe lawsuit pop up on TMZ, and he did not waste any time. He straight up said it. Fat Joe is next. According to him, the feds are watching Joe heavy, and it's looking like they're about to diddy him. Here's Cuban saying that Joe is next on the chopping block.
They're gonna diddy you. They're gonna diddy Joe. Watch. And they got enough evidence to do it. They're gonna do the diddy on him. The FBI already diddied him.
Cuban said the FBI already been on it, and this ain't no internet rumor. He claims there's receipts, and the craziest part is that Fat Joe basically did it to himself. Like, if what's coming out is true, he's got nobody to blame but himself. And there's more reasons to believe these might be Joe's last days as a free man. Cuban thinks that there might be some truth to TA's story. Cuban was right there with them in the mix, and he wants to hear TA's side of the story. Not to mention, Cuban can't believe Fat Joe is out here trying to sue TA. This man wrote songs for Joe for free, and now he's hitting him with a lawsuit. At the end, Cuban basically said, this whole situation is getting dark, and it's giving Diddy vibes, and it's no coincidence that Cuban would bring Diddy up because Diddy and Joe did party together a lot. Joe's been real open about how lit Diddy's parties used to get. He said they were off the hook. During that 2005 MTV commercial, Fat Joe made it loud and clear what goes down at the Diddy freak-offs.
It's hard to say which is more off the hook, a Diddy party or a Diddy after party.
Joe even joked that Diddy is the king of deception when it comes to party antics. And let's be real, that's a loaded statement. Now here's where it gets interesting. If Fat Joe was always around the industry players, could he have seen more than he let on? Plenty of photos online show Joe grinning ear to ear, and he always talks about how crazy and fun the vibe was. But now that all these lawsuits and dark allegations around Diddy are spilling out, we're here looking at everyone who was in them VIP rooms, and Fat Joe was one of those people. We ain't saying Joe did anything, but when you this close to the fire, you might have at least felt some heat. It's funny that 50 Cent caught the attention of the recent Fat Joe news and how Joe's name is getting dragged out in public. 50 is always the first one in line to clown Diddy when some news about him comes out. So, is there a connection there? Remember when 50 Cent and Fat Joe couldn't stand each other? This beef was legendary. All that drama started because Joe was cool with Murder Inc. And back then, 50 was on a mission to burn that whole camp down. So naturally, Fat Joe caught some heat, and the two started going at it hard. Diss tracks flew, interviews got messy, and let's not forget that chaotic moment at the 2005 VMAs when they were throwing shade live on stage. For years, it was war. 50 clowning Joe, Joe firing back, both trying to outdo each other in the streets and in the booth. But fast forward to now, and it's a whole different vibe. By 2024, these two flipped the script. 50 was on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast, talking about how him and Joe are basically best friends now. 50 Cent said,
So my whole beef with Fat Joe was really his loyalty. Later, we become the best friends.
50 said the beef wasn't even personal. It was just about who was riding with who during that whole Murder Inc. era. Once that heat cooled off, 50 started respecting Joe's loyalty, even calling him loyal to a default. And Fat Joe kept it real too, said he respects 50, and even admitted that the feud helped cement his status as a New York heavyweight. Now here's where it gets interesting. With everything going on with Diddy and Fat Joe being dragged into some wild allegations, 50's been unusually quiet, like defensive even. Some folks thought 50 would have roasted Joe by now, but instead he's backing him up. 50 went to his Instagram and posted a photo of him and Joe at a basketball game. His caption wrote, "These baseless accusations and claims are not credible. I'm sorry Joe has to endure the public scrutiny and damage to his reputation. This, a stick up." And Fat Joe even dropped a reply with a 100 emoji. But with 50, you can never be safe, and it's kinda sus that we would see this type of behavior from a guy who lives to troll people, especially old enemies. We got plenty of comments which prove our point here too. So what's really going on here? Did that beef squash come with a deeper alliance? Or does 50 know something we don't about what really went down at them infamous parties? All we're saying is, when two former ops start moving like besties during a scandal, you gotta wonder what tea they sippin' behind closed doors.